Well, good morning, guys. I want to take a minute to kind of talk about something a little different. Just so you know, I'm Tim. This is Kathi. We're Taste Life with us. And we're going to talk about something that, a little hard, a little different.
Yeah,
So,
I'm gonna have to overshare a tad.
yeah. So basically, I want to talk about mild cognitive impairment, or basically traveling when your memory doesn't work very well.
Yeah, and that can be for other reasons too. Age, medications, all kinds of things can cause your brain to not work as great in your memory.
Yeah, so back in 2015, Kathi was originally diagnosed with this thing. And then through some different testing and everything, it really came out to be more of just a B12 deficiency.
Like a severe one.
Yeah, so that did cause some problems, some permanent problems. But once we got the treatment, it really improved dramatically.
Yeah, I still take injections for B12 constantly, and it's helped a lot. But there's damage. There's just damage to the brain. Sorry, there's a lot of flies here. We're on a little island in Cambodia. But there's a little damage there, and we have to live with it all the time as we travel.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to talk about how does that impact travel? How does it impact what we do? And there's a lot of people out there who do have issues, medical issues, physical issues, limitations. And so we talk about, how does that prevent you from traveling? Should it prevent you from traveling?
And so we were concerned about that before we became full-time nomads. But, it even had an effect sometimes on vacations that we would take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Short-term vacations. It's any kind of travel because there's a lot of details involved, and memory and stress, and things keep changing, and you're tired, and all of those things. So
all of those really affect it.
Talk a little bit about our coping mechanisms to give you some coping mechanisms and some reasons why actually we think travel has been good for it and is good for it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a factor.
It is a factor. We're not going to lie there.
The story's not all negative. So,
No.
Yeah, like Tim said, I was diagnosed with this in early 2015. Kind of funny, really. We didn't notice it dramatically for a while because I had a condition that affected my memory, and some medications for that condition affected my memory.
Right.
That was over in like 2007.
Yeah.
But we were used to me being a little foggy. The
Just
whole
a wee
family
bit
was used to
forgetful,
mom's brain. But then it got bad.
Well, we really noticed it one birthday. We have 5 kids. A lot of kids are always over at our house. When we were doing a birthday, I can't remember for which kid it was, but we sang the happy birthday and did all that. And then Kathi turned around less than 5 minutes later and was like,
we were about to cut the cake.
We should sing happy birthday first. And everybody just kind of went, huh?
Our now daughter-in-law looked at me and she says, Kathi, we just did. You videotaped it. I'm like, oh, never mind. And that was on the heels of about a year and a half before that. We had moved to a new neighborhood, and I met the woman down the street that was the mother of the kids our youngest played with and the wife of his football coach. Met her in her yard, talked to her for about 5 minutes. Less than a week later, I was at a football thing, a sign-up thing, and I walked up and I'm like, oh, you're my neighbor. Oh, I'm glad to get to meet you. And she's just looking at me really funny, and I'm basically having the same exact conversation with her that we'd already had. And I didn't even think a thing of it until a few days later. I was driving into the neighborhood, and all of a sudden it flashed back to me, and I went, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. I had zero recollection of it until it suddenly flashed back.
Yeah.
So those are a couple major things. I've had times when I got lost driving through our neighborhood, a small town, and just a few streets away, and I had to call Tim, I'm at the intersection of this and this, and I don't know how to get home. So thank God for GPS now.
So that leads us to kind of the next question. How does this impact travel day? how does this impact
Yeah.
traveling?
So I think one of the things that was really important about it at the time, not just those big things, but the fact that at the time I was homeschooling my kids, so I had to do their grades, and I was having a very hard time adding up the numbers for the grades and keeping it straight on the calculator.
Yeah.
Like an intensely difficult time, and I'm pretty good with numbers. I was having trouble managing our finances. You
It
know,
wasn't that much finance to manage,
things
but
things like that, especially things involving numbers or having to remember a sequence of things or kind of multitask multiple
Yeah.
things in my brain, which
yeah, multitasking, what used to be a strong suit for you,
Yeah.
became a real
a real difficulty.
yeah.
And so and finding words, and you're probably noticing that right now. It's a major problem for me finding words. I do try to use alternate words. They don't always make the best sense, but they're a word and they're in my mind. So
And it's okay.
anyways, I was having trouble with the numbers, which was the scariest part of all of this, I think, because that's the thing that impacts your life and your travel.
Right.
Because travel is all about multiple details, and many of them involve numbers. You're
Time
applying
slots.
for visas, you're
Right.
keeping track of time. Yeah. You're
Dates and
even looking for a flight, you've got tons of numbers in your mind, times and hours and information. So it was
it was a scary moment.
Yeah.
Just to really think about how all of that would impact it. And as we sit here now today, as we sit here traveling all over the world, I mean, good Lord, we're on some small island in Cambodia and it's just gorgeous. There's more to it than just saying this is the problem.
And honestly, I will say though that's part of the reason we do travel is because my mom and my grandma both died of Alzheimer's. My dad got dementia in his very old age.
Yeah.
Your dad died of Parkinson's and had dementia, and your mom had dementia. You have a Parkinson's DNA marker. I have Alzheimer's DNA marker. I mean, we know these are genetic possibilities for us.
Yeah.
We're not going to worry about that or live in the future like that, but we are going to seize the day.
Got to give you an example of how this kind of really impacted us on our last basic travel day, which was a 3-day.
To come here.
Yeah,
to
a
this
3-day
island.
travel day here.
Yeah.
Because it was really stressful. And stress is something that really kind of sets this off.
Yeah. So one of the coping mechanisms that I have is to plan really low stress travel days. And that's
Yes.
why we took it over 3 days, because it involved 3 flights and 2 ferries and thus weather, right? So we were taking it easy, except that our last flight from Siem Reap down here to southern Cambodia was on a little tiny local airline that changed the flight 3 times in the 3 days prior to the actual flight. And
These changes they weren't even like time changes, they were day
yeah,
changes.
so literally the night before we got on our flight from Thailand, we get an email saying, "Good news, we've moved your entire flight up a whole day. You're now leaving tomorrow at whatever time it was." Like, oh my gosh. So we looked and we only had an hour to get into Cambodia, clear customs and immigration, get our luggage, get to a different terminal, sign back in,
Yeah.
and be there in time to get on the flight, which boarded, supposedly 40 minutes before takeoff, or 30 minutes before takeoff. So we had like a half an hour
Yeah.
to do all this. Thank God this is a deserted small airport. We didn't know that, but it was. We made it. In
Obviously,
fact,
we're here.
then we're sitting there, and 30 minutes past the boarding time, there's still nobody at the desk,
No plane.
no plane, no message on the board, nothing, no delay, nothing. It's just saying like it's still
Just-
leaving in like 3 minutes ago.
It just says waiting,
Yeah.
waiting.
So my brain, excuse me. So my brain, when it gets overwhelmed, which it does fairly easily, it's like a computer that just overheats, and then it just shuts down. And
Yes.
so, how sometimes you're on the computer and then you hear that fan whirring in the background, and then you're like, oh crap, and then shut down. Well, slightly older computers don't have that now, but in the old days, you know what I'm talking about.
Old brains, old computers, we're used
So-
to it.
So I started using one of my coping mechanisms, which is,
Dump everything on Tim.
well, Tim is not really involved in the travel planning, so he's pretty clueless. I just run things, right?
Wait a minute, I'm not clueless. Okay,
He's on a need-to-know basis of the next thing that's happening, right? Like, we need to get there now in 30 minutes. No
Yes.
time to stop for a beer. That's what he needs to know. Okay, no. So anyways, I started making photos of everything in my phone related to the rest of our travel to get here and sending those photos to Tim. I started explaining it to him. I think I might have even jotted a few notes down
You
and
did.
sent you the note what to do, because we had a backup driver basically and a backup hotel in case things went south, because they seemed likely to. So
But the bigger problem really was the problem solving. And when you keep, and we do this on a regular basis, we keep a lot of information in our brain and we kind of work through it and work with all that. And one of the things that happens with this is that house of cards can fall. And when it
Yeah.
falls, everything stops.
when my brain starts to overheat, I know I have a couple minutes max until the whole house of cards stored in my head collapses, and I'm just like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to be doing.
Don't know where we're supposed to go.
Yeah, I just want to go sit down someplace and
So
chill.
if you've ever watched one of Kathy's planning videos, they are awesome. And they're very detailed oriented. And you'll notice she writes everything down and does double pictures of things and all of that. This is the why.
Yeah, so that's another coping thing I use. I have, which honestly everybody should do this, but I have duplicates of our plans, like in TripIt and in Gmail and on photos, and if it's complicated, I'll put notes for myself in my phone to make sure I don't forget any little pieces. And even in general life, not even travel, my notes app in my phone is completely full. Like I write down everything, keep lists and notes for absolutely everything, because otherwise I will forget.
Yeah.
So that's one coping mechanism for travel specifically. Another one is triple checking everything, especially if the things involve numbers, because that's where my brain really goes wrong and where I don't notice that it went
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
So
And
when
we've had a few occasions where we've missed dates. Either been early or late.
yeah, accidentally scheduled something wrong and had to, luckily caught it in time, but
With the triple checking. I mean, that's part of it.
why we triple check. And I try to have Tim check things too. Like if I have a visa application, did I get all these numbers correct? Did I remember everything?
Which is scary in its own right, folks, because I don't remember very much very easily.
But yeah, we try to really duplicate and double check. I was actually a bookkeeper before we started this job, which was kind of a miracle because that's how far my brain had improved since
Right.
the B12 issue.
Yeah.
But even as a bookkeeper, and I was a really good bookkeeper, and most of it's on the computer, so it's not me physically doing that. But I double check, triple check everything, and I found mistakes a lot. So
Yeah.
another thing that's important to do is to avoid fatigue and stress,
Yeah.
because those are the things that really knock it. So I really try to be sure I get as good a sleep as I can. And if we're doing a lot, I just take a day off and do nothing. And we try to actually really spread out our activities.
Yeah, slow travel is important for us that way. We, the last 5 weeks have been very fast travel for us.
And that was probably part of it too, with the overheating.
Yeah, that probably had a big part of it. And so, yeah, we try to,
And we were tired because of those partier guys in the previous hotel.
that's a whole nother thing. We do try to eat right. We do try to take those rest breaks. We do try to spread stuff out. We do try to give ourselves as much opportunity for success as possible.
Yeah, I try to eat a lot of brain foods and iron. I wouldn't say I'm a great eater. I'm no health food person. But, you know, I do try to include those things.
Well, and I think you also try to listen to your body too. So,
When
you know,
it's craving things. Like dairy lately. I've been eating a lot of ice cream. It's the only dairy there is here. So we also play a lot of games for brain exercise, like sequence and cards, where we have to constantly rearrange things and strategize. And I think that really helps my brain.
I think so too.
Yeah. I'll tell you the one thing that's tough.
What's that?
is YouTube.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
YouTube is stressful for her.
It's a hobby for Tim, and he enjoys it, and I'm super glad. And I like doing YouTube because I'm a natural teacher, and I like sharing what we've learned and sharing our travels. But this travel planning series I've been working on, I'm even doing the editing, which is something brand new for me. And travel requires you to learn a lot of new skills, and that's a good thing for your brain too. But really, honestly, the hard part is watching myself on the videos, because I see this cognitive impairment in the way I talk, in the way I process thoughts. And what's funny is, like, my thoughts are a lot more clear in my head than the way they come out.
I think that's true for anybody.
But I'll like tape it and I'll think, oh, it's all on this organized checklist that's in my mind. And I think in outlines, you know, I'm like that kind of person. I've always been in management, so I always have this like very sequential set of goals and information. And I watch it back and I'm like, what the hell? Who's going to even be able to understand this? I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say. And then I have these long legs where I can't think of the next word.
You'll often find me filling in words for her. It's not because we're working off of a strict outline that I can read the words. I'm just getting better at understanding where she's going.
Yeah, and so anyways, we speed the videos up, and that's why they sound a little tinny sometimes, but we do that to try to compensate for me. And we have a lot of cuts. You probably see a lot of cut fades. That's because of the times when I'm just sitting there and I'm not talking, or I've really lost the train of thought.
So we're just traveling down a rabbit hole that we don't know where it leads.
So doing this editing did kind of cause a meltdown in me, like an emotional meltdown. I'm better this week, but about the last 3 weeks before that, we did not do any YouTube. I said, I just need time off from this. I don't want to travel plan. I don't want to do YouTube. My brain just needs a rest. Yeah. And I'm better, but it was emotionally difficult, because you don't want to see yourself failing or declining, or, you know, and hopefully it won't keep declining.
No.
I think it does a little bit, you know, over time. So anyways, the whole point of this really is to say,
let's move positive.
The point of this is to say, seize the day.
Seize the day. This is why you travel. Here's the thing. The only thing you're given is today. It's the present. It's a present. Unwrap it. Enjoy it. Tomorrow, you don't know.
You don't ever know what's going to happen. You could have a heart attack tonight, you know?
Okay.
So if you just keep putting your dreams off until you're old enough to just have time and money, sometimes you run out of time, or you run out of money because you have sicknesses and things like that just start sucking the life out of you and making travel too difficult. Because if you wait too long, then your only way of traveling is very expensive, because you have to stay in nice places and get a lot of help getting to and from, and go on tours so that you're safe, you know, and maybe rent wheelchairs, or, you know, travel gets more expensive as your health declines, because you're not as flexible and nimble. Yeah,
and you also reach a point, you know, cognitively, if you're forgetting when to take your medications, or you really need a lot of help and guidance, that's too late.
It's too late. So don't wait till it's too late.
So I used to work with a lot of geriatric patients, elderly patients.
He's a physical therapist.
And I always had people tell me pretty much the same comment. You know, it was always, you know, these golden years, they're not so golden. They're dented, they're tarnished, they're bent up. Enjoy them when they're still gold.
Yeah. And you saw the sick people, granted. And we see lots of nomads that are older, but I'll tell you what, they are dynamic. And the reason is because they started when they were younger. And travel itself has kept them in better physical condition, because they're constantly active and walking. It has kept them up on technology, which you really need to travel. And that's a brain thing, you know, and it's harder to learn it than it is to just maintain your knowledge, right?
Grow with the system. Yeah,
to grow with the system. And they are a lot more like stable, because they're used to uneven surfaces. They're used to pulling suitcases. They're used to all these things. Starting when you're already struggling with those things, it's too late. You need to start when you're young, and it helps you keep that longer. And the problem solving of transportation in local places and languages, and, you know, all the things you deal with, the younger you are when you start doing that, the more you'll be able to keep it up as you age, because now you're just adapting it to a different place. You're not overwhelmed with learning a huge amount of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, start early.
Enjoy.
Live your dream. Don't let this kind of thing stop you if you're still able to function.
Yeah.
And that's the message of this. And hopefully a few little coping mechanisms there. So when you're traveling, you have a lot less stress. You get a lot more sleep. It's all
Unless
good.
you got the drunk people next to you.
And you know what? You're in beautiful places like this that are not polluted. You're not sitting around just watching television, letting your mind rot. You're actually doing things and learning things. And,
Absolutely.
And it's a great lifestyle for people who feel like their mind is aging.
Pretty
Or they
much.
have some kind of, thing like me.
All right. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for letting us just kind of talk about something that's been on our heart.
Please like and subscribe if you want to see our other videos. We talk about a lot of different tools for travel, as well as
Where we're traveling.
places where we're traveling, and budgets and such. And this applies if you have a full-time nomad life, or if you're just planning a nice vacation.
Yeah.
Thanks for tasting life with us.
Now, go taste life for yourself. Enjoy it.